We are the anchors of Queer News Tonight, and this evening we discuss the queer headlines. A Connecticut state legislative candidate who called for executing gay people was just handed a decisive loss at the ballot box. After widespread condemnation from his own party, voters made their voices heard in the Tuesday's primary.
Voters in South Florida are receiving political mailers carrying the logo of Equality Florida. But there's a huge catch. The civil rights group says the ad is a complete fake designed to mislead voters and undermine State Senator Shevrin Jones.
As restrictive healthcare bans sweep across red states, thousands of transgender people are fleeing to sanctuary cities like Seattle. Now, city leaders are preparing to vote on a $300,000 in emergency funding to help local groups support this unprecedented influx.
Comments made by political Twitch streamer Hasan Piker regarding social dynamics in the Middle East have reignited broader debates within progressive media. While critics argue that minimizing Hamas's anti-LGBTQ and anti-women records undermines universal civil rights, Piker's supporters contend his commentary focuses primarily on U.S. foreign policy and anti-imperialism rather than endorsing religious fundamentalism.
New York lawmakers have introduced legislation to repeal a 1985 prohibition that banned commercial bathhouses during the height of the HIV/AIDS epidemic. The proposed bill would replace the state's decades-old prohibition with a modern state licensing system and public health oversight framework.
All this important LGBTQ plus news and more this evening on Queer News Tonight. Welcome to Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only LGBTQ daily news television show, broadcasting live and available on demand on your favorite streaming channels. I'm Larry Farver, and let's queer up politics. Anti-LGBTQ candidate defeated in Connecticut GOP primary after public backlash. First-time Republican legislative candidate Jaden McCormick has suffered a defeat in Connecticut's 50th House District primary following intense bipartisan condemnation over extreme anti-LGBTQ social media posts. McCormick originally secured the local party endorsement. However, outcry erupted after reports revealed past posts where he shared an image of a noose in response to same-sex marriage, called for the death penalty for gay people, and denounced Pride Month. Top Republicans, including House Minority Leader Vincent Candelora, disavowed his remarks and urged him to step aside. When McCormick refused to end his campaign, local GOP leaders rallied behind challenger Anthony Emilio. On election night, voters overwhelmingly rejected McCormick, with Emilio securing approximately 80% of the vote. Emilio will now advance to face the incumbent Democratic representative, Pat Boyd, in the November general election. Well, I'm glad to see in this case that good won over evil. I think it's really wonderful that Republicans, in spite of some of the things that we think about the right, stood up for our community and kicked this guy to the curb.
I would say that that's just an electoral calculation.
Well, it's a move in the right direction.
I mean, I'm going to agree with Bobby, because I remember when I was at the Florida Dems back in 2019, a Republican state senator in Florida joked about killing gay people. There was no pushback from the Republican Party here because it didn't hurt them. In Connecticut, it looks bad, though. I'll also remind viewers that, New England doesn't have the best LGBTQ rights record always. It's better than not, but one of the most active Nazi organizations is in New England, and they do all sorts of homophobic things there. There's always that stuff. So, great that, they did this in the one time with everyone watching in a place that it would hurt them, they do it. But if you look at the Republican record overall, it's crocodile tears. We don't trust them.
I mean, also, he is a 20-something pipsqueak. He is a fringe candidate he is already a fringe candidate.
He's the poster child of the incel movement, right?
Okay.
And plus, the thing is, as New England turns bluer and bluer electorally over the past decade or so, a lot of what you would think of moderate Republicans, think like pre-George Bush Republicans, are increasingly running away from the party, which is why you have people like Scott Lively, who notoriously equates all gay people with Nazis, as running for state house in Massachusetts, or this guy running for state house in Connecticut. They once you have kicked out, once every reasonable person leaves, you're left with the freaks.
But I also don't want us to feel like we're ganging up, because it would be wonderful if the Republican Party wasn't so bigoted.
No, but I think that at least there's a positive message, coming from that party, and the individuals mentioned in the story. Certainly I think most of us will support someone who is Democratic or independent that supports our community, but it's kind of refreshing in light of our current administration to hear a story like that.
Well, that's the phase. Do we really think that they represent the Republican Party of America today with their current president?
But there might be at least hope that, maybe, your parents' parties where, there might have been, people could have had a civil conversation without being mean, or in this case, making violent,
calling for the hanging of the queers they don't like. There's such nostalgia for times that are no longer with us.
And they probably will never return. You're such an optimist.
I'm Alex Morash, and let's queer up politics. Equality Florida denounces fraudulent mailer targeting Senator Shevrin Jones. Equality Florida, the state's largest LGBTQ plus civil rights advocacy group, has issued a public warning regarding fraudulent campaign materials falsely claiming to be produced by the organization. The fake mailers and digital advertisements target Florida State Senator Shevrin Jones, a prominent openly gay Democratic lawmaker representing South Florida. The fraudulent materials feature Equality Florida's official branding and logo without authorization, attempting to confuse voters regarding candidate endorsements and policy stances ahead of local primary elections. In a formal public statement, Equality Florida strongly condemned the unauthorized use of its name and intellectual property, labeling the operation a deliberate smear campaign meant to deceive voters. The organization clarified that it did not authorize, produce, or fund the mailers, and announced that its legal team is evaluating options to address the fraudulent political advertising. Now, we showed it on for the viewers to see, but just to be very clear, it claimed that Shevrin Jones was HIV positive and attempted to donate blood and was rejected. Support the cause. Now, news outlets have reported that Shevrin Jones is not HIV positive. It was an old story that was misused before. But also, this is just, quite frankly, disgusting, despicable. It does take a second to figure out what the heck it was going on, so I get the viewers need a second. But the bigger point here is, this, unfortunately, is the future of dark campaigning in America, folks. Yes. You're going to be seeing a lot more fake ads trying to deceive us, and it's a reminder, if it sounds insane, it probably isn't coming from the groups you think it is, and also, unless it's coming from a Republican. And also,
since you already bring up Republicans, I mean, they have run dark campaigns for a couple of last cycles now with, for example, putting people with the same names on the ballot as... As the Democratic
wasn't
opponent.
Jack Kennedy accused of that back in the day? So we can't really say it's only a Republican thing.
But as social media and fragmentation of media coverage become more and more common, people rely on things. I mean, I get spammed by these campaign ads, and I'm not even a voter, so.
No, but the one thing I'll also say is it's more likely a primary opponent, or more likely someone who either does not like LGBTQ people or likes a different candidate pushing this. But at the end of the day, it also doesn't really help his opponent, so it tends to be idiots who think they're helping and they're not.
Yeah, and with AI generation and all that stuff, people are going to see more and more fake ads, and
that's why we need to regulate AI and rein it in before.
Exactly. But how? The question is, First Amendment includes all expressions, but, you have to prove fraud.
First off, you're not allowed to pretend to be another organization and lie about someone's HIV death in a campaign. You can say almost anything about a candidate. You can't so lie in such a clear way like that.
In a campaign season like that, by the time it gets litigated, it's already long past. That's the thing they're taking advantage of. Even if they know that they're committing fraud, they are going to commit it anyway, because by the time that the lawsuit comes around and a hearing was scheduled, no one is there to stop them.
But we can also talk about a little bit about Shevrin Jones. For those that don't know, he is running for Congress. And my understanding is he's up in that primary. I don't want to jinx him because the primary is Tuesday. But he seems to be doing very well.
Good.
So that's something to think about. And he's has a long history as a state senator, a great progressive state senator in Florida, and he's one of the few openly LGBTQ and Black elected officials in Congress. It might be two if Elijah Mayer would have won the primary. Who knows,
Yeah, well,
Go Elijah.
We certainly wish him well.
And I'm Bobby Huen, and let's queer up trans rights. Seattle wastes $300,000 in grants for LGBTQ plus groups amid trans refugee influx. The Seattle City Council is evaluating the proposal to allocate $300,000 in municipal grants funding to local LGBTQ plus nonprofit organizations, providing emergency aid to transgender individuals relocating from states with restrictive gender-affirming care bans. Seattle formally designated itself a sanctuary city for gender-affirming healthcare in 2023, leading to a notable increase of individuals and families migrating to Washington state for medical care and legal protection. Community organizations report that housing assistance, medical navigation, and legal support services have faced surging demands over the past year. If approved, the $300,000 package will distribute grants to frontline community groups to help cover temporary shelter, legal aid, and essential services. Proponents emphasized that municipal packing is critical to sustaining local social safety nets as national polarization around healthcare access continues to drive displacement. Good. But do we know that if this is just Seattle or is it a statewide? Like, are we talking about, Washington state as a whole?
The grants or the influx?
Yeah, the influx. Well, the influx, I presume that they are heading into major cities and LGBTQ centers. I mean, given how politically polarized Washington state is. You have one side on the West Coast, which is very, very liberal, Seattle, and then you have very conservative on the other side, so conservative that Oregon, some parts of Oregon and Washington want to split and join Idaho.
I mean, Washington doesn't have the conservative movements don't really control anything in Washington. Seattle, I would imagine it was specifically a local issue to deal with, let's just be honest, there is a trans crisis in this country, and yes, referring to them as a refugee crisis is the right way to refer to this, because so many people are being displaced by governments like Florida and Texas and across the country going after people in all sorts of different ways. I think, the quote-unquote, we call them blue states, that they should be putting more money into supporting trans people at this time. And we as a community need to be doing more to assist.
And for example, in Illinois, they just passed a series of laws that guarantee medical privacy for trans individuals seeking healthcare and prevents red states from essentially probing their medical records from out of state, which is creating more bureaucracy just so that we can protect a vulnerable population. And I think that it's just not what we're supposed to do as a country as a whole.
Well, there's lots of things we're not supposed to be doing as a country. They are, but
go ahead.
Oh, well, I was just with the more bureaucracy, that's not necessarily a bad thing. If there was more bureaucratic levers in California, maybe Los Angeles hospitals that decided to stop providing trans health care might have had more regulators look at them like, no, you can't just stop providing health care for an entire group of people. Are you going to shut down all care for all women in your hospital while you're at it too, or all Black people? What the heck are you doing as a medical community?
Well, in that case, I don't have a lot to talk about in the subject, but Sacramento, you should get on with it. There should be statewide protections for any of those.
Tied into mental health, and hopefully with the elections coming up, we see that things turn bluer. And there's hope for 2028. And, we certainly wish the communities everywhere, including our trans brothers and sisters, the very best in, daily life. And hopefully, that there's more hope in the future.
I'm Alex Morash, and let's queer up politics. Hasan Piker stream sparks debate over left-wing approaches to Middle East policy. Comments made by left-wing political commentator Hasan Piker during a recent live stream have drawn renewed scrutiny from political analysts, progressive groups, and media critics. During the stream, Piker addressed arguments frequently raised by critics regarding Hamas's oppressive social policies towards women and LGBTQ+ individuals in Gaza. arguing that focusing heavily on these internal social stances in Western political debate often serves to derail broader discussions surrounding military conflict, occupation, U.S. and U.S. foreign aid. The remarks have drawn distinct reactions across the political spectrum. From mainstream and centrist critics, some civil rights advocates, centrist Democrats, and media commentators argue that dismissing or compartmentalizing anti-LGBTQ violence and systemic misogyny creates a dangerous blind spot, emphasizing that human rights should be defended universally regardless of geopolitical alignment. From left-wing advocates and supporters, progressive defenders maintain that Piker's commentary is rooted in an anti-imperialistic framework that prioritizes ending civilian casualties and military intervention, arguing that highlighting social policies in war zones is frequently weaponized by Western commentators to justify ongoing military actions. The controversy highlights ongoing ideological tensions within progressive spaces over how to navigate human rights, anti-imperialism, and political advocacy in global conflicts. Well, I will start with, before we get into, all the different opinions I have on America's top socialist thirst trap, Hasan Piker, as I'm a big Hasan stan, if you didn't know. But on the idea that this is a big debate within progressive circles, that's mostly establishment Democrats just trying to create hay. And the whole reason why they're even talking about him right now is because the people he keeps endorsing keeps winning, and so they're trying to make hay over him. So that's where we get into that. I will also say, before we really get into the nuts and bolts, people have different opinions. People always want to say, well, we're not lawyers. We don't know how to define a genocide. Well, as a political scientist with a graduate degree, I do know a thing or two about this. And more importantly, NGOs in Israel are the ones that keep documenting how it meets the legal definition of a genocide in Gaza right now. About 80,000 dead. You look at the drone footage of what's happened in Gaza. They've just leveled the entire place. I do not like what Russia is doing to Kiev, in Ukraine. Mm-hmm. They have not attempted to systematically level the entire area. This is not normal, what we're seeing. And so to focus on Hamas, which I don't even know if any of them are still alive at this point, is quite bizarre. And I think it's more Abbott's just trying to make hay about Hasan than actually worry about human rights. Because if we worried about human rights, there's so many things we could talk about, with not just what's going on in Gaza, but also Israel, also Saudi Arabia. Let's talk about it. People are like, well, what about the homophobia in Hamas? I'm like, well, we don't seem to really care about the homophobia in Saudi Arabia. The U.S. seems to still buy their oil.
And also, I just want to point out that call it genocide, call it mass murder, call it whatever. But, how is LGBTQ rights going to improve when everyone's dead? And secondly, from the international relations standpoint, there is this ongoing pinkwashing idea that somehow, if that we should use aggressive action to punish other communities for not being supportive of LGBTQ rights, but those efforts almost universally backfire because they are now associating gay rights with the people that attack them. They were not going to improve on LGBTQ rights because you drop bombs on them. Maybe sanctions, yes. Maybe boycotts, certainly, make them feel pain at the wallet, but attacking militarily a region that is known for anti-LGBTQ rights is just going to trigger a counter-reaction where they say that we must persist with our cultural values, or social values, which is anti-LGBTQ rights, and therefore perpetuating more suffering for the local LGBTQ community. And plus, I'm going to ask, when they drop the bombs, do they single out, I'm not going to kill you because you're LGBTQ? No, they die regardless.
Yeah. Any thoughts? Do you think we can bomb our way to equality, Larry?
Well, I think, again, it depends on where you're coming from. And certainly our current administration is going to spin it one way. And then, people who are more progressive, like those sitting at the table here today, are going to try to look through and really look at the facts versus spinning it in a direction that might not be based on reality. So, we need to look at things like, cruise ships. Patti LuPone was recently on a cruise ship and they were denied port in Egypt and Turkey. So we need to certainly, as a community, I think that's a separate issue from what we're talking about. We certainly need to spend our money where it's welcome, but then let people know if we're not welcome, you're not going to get our dollars.
That's fair.
And Absolutely. And we're talking about a different issue. We're talking about human rights. We're talking about war. We're talking about, innocent people getting killed in war.
No, it is. And not to use your point to make another point, like one of the reasons why like things like, the whole quagmire with God that happens, like, you talk about not wanting to spend your money. Before October 7th, you could not legally go and spend money in Gaza. Israel put a blockade for years after that. And, a lot of people want to talk about Gaza and Hamas. They blame, the people of Gaza voted for Hamas. And I do have to remind people a couple of things. Like one, the election was in 2006. Before October 23rd, about half the population was under 18, which means almost no one alive had voted in that election to put those guys in power. And I like to go on a little anti-Hamas rant occasionally. Forgive. But people forget, like when a DSA in Broward, we had a Palestinian group come and talk to us about the whole conflict. And people forget, Hamas came about because they thought Fatah, the other group, was too socialist. So it's a very anti-socialist group. So people love to say that the left is so pro-Hamas. I'm like, yeah, they're an anti-socialist group. They don't like us, just so you all are aware. And, on the whole idea, because people will criticize Hasan because he's said that Hamas is 1,000 times better than Israel. And what does he mean by that? And it's not about actually thinking Hamas is doing a good thing. It's that Israel has done so many bad things. And, when it comes like, how do you figure out what to do about people that are being oppressed? And Norman Finkelstein, who is a Holocaust academic, he has a PhD, and his parents or his family were Holocaust survivors. He reminds people that, in America during slavery, he came up with this. I'm not the one. He came up with this. When the slave revolts happened, and they killed a lot of people, they killed some innocent people too. The abolitionists didn't go and condemn Nat Turner and the slave revolt. They condemned slavery. If you do not want these evils to happen, make a better world, emancipate people, give people the ability to control their own destinies, No,
that was, I like that background that you provided. And I think, we need to sort of sit back as a culture, but, worldwide, and try to encourage, maybe trying to understand where people are coming from. And I know that sounds very almost childish to say something.
No, I'll end this on a light note before you send us out, Larry. Well, I'll just say, for one thing, if we could all agree, go find some shirtless photos of Hasan Piker kids. You're going to enjoy them.
Do it for Alex.
Just watch his stream, Just stare.
He's not shirtless anymore. You got to go find the photos.
I have a feeling a certain someone at this table is going to use AI after this broadcast and see what that looks like.
I'm Bobby Huen, and let's queer up politics. New York lawmakers propose lifting AIDS-era ban on LGBTQ plus bathhouses. New York State's lawmaker Eric Botcher is introducing legislation to lift a 1985 prohibition on commercial bathhouses enacted during the initial surge of the HIV/AIDS crisis. The Public Health Modernization Act seeks to dismantle the AIDS-era sanitary code regulations that effectively shut down adult bathhouses across the state. In place of prohibition, the proposed legislation would establish state licensing guidelines and updated public health standards for adult venues. Advocates and public health scholars argue that the 1980s era closures fail to reflect modern medical science, such as the availability of PrEP, PAP, and effective antiretroviral treatments, and instead stripped marginalized communities of vital social cultural spaces. If passed by the legislature and signed into law, the measure will allow adult bathhouses to reopen legally under the standardized state public health and safety protocols. Well, so look, I wasn't even recognize the fact that I was gay back then when these closures happened. I mean, this is now 40-something years ago, and
you were like 4 when this happened, Bobby.
Yeah, exactly.
At most.
And the truth is, back then, it might have been necessary to prevent the spread of the epidemic because people were less educated about safe sex and all that stuff. But just like the blood donation ban, these are narrowly tailored to target LGBTQ spaces. I mean, other bathhouses exist today in New York City.
Absolutely.
It's just not, but they were targeting specifically bathhouses that cater to the LGBTQ community, specifically in this case, the gay male community. And And there's now 2 generations of LGBTQ people in New York who have never even experienced a bathhouse or even heard of one before. I mean, back in the day, in 1970s, one of the most famous bathhouses in New York was the Continental Baths, featuring a very young Bette Midler singing piano, accompanied by a very young Barry Manilow. Yeah. I mean, both are, much older now, and much more famous. But yes, back then, bathhouses are not just for hooking up, but they are actually cultural spaces for gay men to gather in the days of criminalization and marginalization.
Oh, you're like, I'll see old historical footage of the bathhouses in New York City back then. Oh my goodness, it was like a whole event back then. And you look at modern bathhouses and most of them are like the saddest things you've ever been in. It's all men who don't talk to each other. It's very weird. And I do like the Club Fort Lauderdale. I've only been once, but they have a pool and a hot tub. I like to hang out there. But on the whole issue of the blood and clothes in the bathhouse, we say was this about, we didn't know about safe sex. It was more the medical community really was so in the Stone Age in the 1980s, not just on this, but on so many different issues.
As someone before I even came out, but I remember seeing articles in Time magazine in the early 80s and knowing people and coming to terms with who I was in high school, but knowing gay people and saying, there were rumors you could get AIDS by sharing a fork. And I had a very close, openly gay friend. And, I said, this is ridiculous. I'm not going to get HIV from sharing a dessert and tasting what he has with the same fork. But we've come a long way. I think we need to look at, as a society, isn't it better for people who have sex with men or they're gay, however you want to identify, being in a safe space rather than possibly having a bad hookup and having a happy outcome.
That's why I've talked about, why we banned them in the first place was really the failure. Failure might be a too harsh word, but the medical community didn't know how to handle it back then. But we know now. There's no excuse to continue some of these old policies. Some of it's still homophobia, the blood ban stuff. I've heard, as recently in the last 5 years, members of the medical community say, well, we've had to ban gay men from donating blood because there could be unseeable and undetectable pathogens in their blood. I'm like, that's fairy dust, honey. That is insane to say that there's undetectable pathogens.
It could also be someone who is heterosexual, who's never had sex.
But something that cannot be detected by anything by known science.
Well,
that's homophobic.
Of course it is.
And also, just to clarify that, across the world, straight people suffer as much from HIV/AIDS,
if not more,
than our community. And at least these days, our community is a lot more educated. I mean, go to any of the community centers: Wilton Manors, San Francisco, New York City, Chicago. PrEP is everywhere. Everyone.
Well, yes,
and their mothers on.
And you look at some folks who don't have these resources in the African continent and other third world countries out there.
We were funding those initiatives.
Absolutely.
I mean, PEPFAR and all that stuff, but of course, those things were dismantled by the forces inside 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
Speaking of third world countries losing HIV funding, I think of the third world country known as the American South. Look at what's happening in Florida with HIV funding. Texas, Mississippi. It's been a huge issue down here.
Yeah, and we can't return going backwards. Absolutely. LGBTQ 1 Minute News. Let's queer up business. Former Lavender staffers launch Q Minnesota LGBTQ plus magazine this October. Following the sudden shutdown of Lavender magazine after 31 years of publication, a group of veteran editors and media executives have banded together to ensure Minnesota maintains its own dedicated LGBTQ plus media presence. The new publication, titled Q Minnesota, is set to launch its inaugural issue this October in both print and digital formats. Helmed by the publisher and editor-in-chief, Andy Lean, former longtime editor at Lavender, the media outlet will cover news, culture, nightlife, and community profiles across the region. Lean is joined by sales executive Barry Levitt and digital strategy director Neil Gelhaus. In addition to the regular physical and online issues, Q Minnesota plans to publish an annual directory connecting readers with local LGBTQ plus organizations, clinics, small businesses, and community resources throughout the state. Well, I'm glad that there is a new brand in town to pick up where the old brand went out. I think it's important in this climate that every citizen in every state have resources, whether there's someone who's young and questioning who they are, to someone, people who are comfortable with who they are in our community. We wish them well. What do you all think?
Well, for one thing, I think I'll defer to the former public editor-in-chief of Options Magazine.
Well, congratulations. It's so much work to keep a local queer magazine running. The print costs are so high, getting the advertising, keeping up, starting a new one back up again. It's just amazing, guys. I just... My hats is off to them, because it is hard. How do you make it work? It's hard. Not every place is like down here where we have a whole queer ecosystem that can help support things like our stuff, which it's not easy to run hotspots in out South Florida either, but at least there's all these queer businesses down here.
And also, even in major cities like LA, we have seen local LGBTQ press launch and fail over and over and over again. And with that note, support your queer businesses. That includes the press. Go to their website. Go pick up a copy of their magazine. As circulation rise, they can afford to take money from advertising to keep producing content.
Absolutely.
LGBTQ 1 Minute News. Let's queer up trans rights. LGBTQ advocates prepare for campaign against Arizona sports ballot measure. LGBTQ advocacy groups in Arizona are mobilizing for a challenging campaign against a constitutional amendment referred to the state ballot concerning transgender student athletes. The measure, titled Protect Girls Sports in Arizona Act, would codify restrictions prohibiting transgender girls from competing on female athletic teams at public schools, community colleges, and state universities. Because the Republican-led legislature bypassed Governor Katie Hobbs by passing a ballot referral rather than a standard bill, the decision goes directly to Arizona voters. Advocacy coalitions, including Equality Arizona and the ACLU of Arizona, report the defeat of the measure will require extensive voter education, as constitutional ballot initiatives are difficult to reverse once passed. Proponents argue the measure is needed to preserve athletic fairness, while opponents warn it writes discrimination into the state constitution and further marginalizes transgender youth. I cannot overemphasize to viewers how important it is to make sure this is defeated. And I'm going to explain why, because in my day job, we do ballot initiatives, and we've looked into Arizona. I've talked to the Progressive Ballot Institute about Arizona. It is one of the hardest states to do the signature process to do it on the ballot. So let's say we lost, and in 10 years we wanted to undo it. It's almost impossible, partly because, fun little random political side fact, if you do a ballot initiative without the legislature just doing it themselves like this, and you pay people to do your ballot for you, you have to keep them in the state capital, more or less, during any certification questions, which could be 2 to 3 months. You got to pay for people to live for months, basically, or all their signatures they do get thrown out. So this is essential to stop.
It's also it's also nothing new under the sun when you live a certain age, but that's how conservatives put anti-LGBTQ, anti-equal marriage measures in 2004 and 2008 and 2012 onto the state constitution to specifically ban LGBTQ marriage and other equal rights measures. They want to write it in the state constitution because they know that a constitutional amendment on the state level, even at the state level, is more difficult to reverse than a legislation. Congress can, state legislation, if it's a state legislation, if the House change hands, they can just reverse it. You can't do that for a constitutional amendment, which is why this is so bloody insidious.
Any thoughts before I give my last comment?
We certainly wish, anyone who's impacted by, this measure, the very best, and we hope that it works out for transgendered brothers and sisters. Young people shouldn't even be worrying about this. They should just be able to be kids. And if you identify as trans boy, trans girl, you're just starting out your life. I wish people could just let these people live their lives.
Exactly. And on the issue of like the voters have defeated anti-trans stuff before. We can win. There is, I mean, if the voters of Cuba could pass LGBTQ rights, I think Americans can do the right thing.
LGBTQ 1 Minute News. Let's queer up faith. Reverend Derek Terry, prominent LGBTQ plus activist and Cincinnati pastor, dies at 42. Terry served as pastor at the St. Peter's United Church of Christ in Pleasant Ridge, where he led a diverse multicultural congregation. He gained national prominence in 2015 after coming out as a gay black pastor to his congregation and over 1 million television viewers on the Oprah Winfrey Network show Lyanna Fix My Life. Throughout his ministry, Terry dedicated his platform to bridging faith, race, and sexuality, providing a model of reconciliation for LGBTQ plus believers across the nation. His passing brought joint tributes from national leaders of the United Church of Christ, who remembered Terry as an, quote, incomparable and fearless leader, end quote, whose message touched communities across the country. Well, condolences, not particularly good at faith matters, but it is actually very courageous of him to come out 10 years ago on the Oprah Winfrey Network, especially it sounds terrible now, but 11 years ago, the landscape was not any better then, right, and compared to now. Faith and sexuality has always had a bit of attention. Not saying that UCC is one of the best when it comes to LGBTQ rights, but when add blackness and cultural norms, and then LGBTQ plus, and then faith, you're talking about very difficult maze to navigate here.
I want to push back. This is a tragic, sad story. This is very
42 is way too young.
But 11 years and 2 months ago, marriage equality became legal nationwide. Mm-hmm. We had a black president who was the first president to support marriage equality, who had trans and queer staffers. Yes. I would say that 11 years ago is a very different situation than what we're living in now.
No, you're right. And unfortunately, how quickly it changed when 45, who's now 47, came into the picture.
Mm-hmm. Analytics company vidIQ has certified Queer News Tonight's YouTube channel as the world's most popular LGBTQ streaming news show. Our queer stories have reached over 13 million views.
We are proud that Queer News Tonight has more YouTube subscribers than any other LGBTQ brand in Florida. We thank you for watching and supporting our voice in our rainbow family. There is no other news program in the LGBTQ world like Queer News Tonight.
It is Thursday, August 13th, 2026. We are live and literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we will tell this evening on Queer News Tonight.
You're watching Queer News Tonight, the world's first daily LGBTQ evening news show.
Welcome to the world's most important LGBTQ evening news show. Hotspots Magazine, Happening Out Television Network, is a nonprofit 501c3 media company in the same model as PBS and NPR, but created for the LGBTQ community.
Our nonprofit mission is to support the 11 pillars of our community. We want to inform and educate the key issues of lesbian, trans, Latino, Black, healthcare, seniors, students, faith, social justice, business, and queer culture. Help us support our diverse community. We are part of one of the largest LGBTQ nonprofit media companies in America. Hotspots Happening Out, South Florida.
In 2026, our magazine is celebrating 41 years of the LGBTQ experience, and Queer News Tonight is celebrating our 5th anniversary with more than 16,000 LGBTQ television stories. We present South Florida's major LGBTQ events, including Pride Fort Lauderdale, Stonewall Pride, and Pride Fest. Our magazine, events, television news, talk, and entertainment shows supports our mission to educate the LGBTQ and broader community.
In 2026, more than 100 community leaders will sit at this table and share their voice as our anchors. Together, we host this show to support the LGBTQ community. Let's meet this evening's anchors at Queer News Tonight. Let's welcome anchor Alex Morash. Alex has served as editor-in-chief of Options Magazine, media director of the National LGBTQ Task Force, and press secretary for the Florida Democratic Party. Welcome to the show, Alex. What's happening?
Thank you, Larry. I'm doing well tonight. I just want to say, Faye, thank you for watching during the block party right now. We hope everyone's having a good time on the drive in Wilton Manors. And I've heard there's so much going on out on the drive. I think Rashida Tlaib is coming tomorrow for a kickoff with a few candidates, because I think this next Tuesday is the primary, isn't it?
Yes, it
Florida.
is.
So don't forget, kids, if you live in Florida, you're registered to vote in one of the two major parties, you can go vote at the primary.
Absolutely.
No matter who you vote for, make sure to vote.
Well, vote responsibly. Don't vote for an idiot.
Let's welcome anchor Bobby Huen. A world traveler and well-versed in global affairs, Bobby provides an international perspective on current events. A PhD in conflict resolution, Bobby is a certified civil and family mediator and the founder of BH Conflict Resolution Services. Welcome to the show, Bobby. How are you doing?
Great. And I want to take the time to say happy birthday to my friend and Alex's friend as well, and frequent viewer of our show, Michael Iglesias. Happy 40th. Wish you have a best day ever. And I'll see you this weekend.
Yes, happy birthday. And we apologize that he mispronounced 33rd birthday.
Oh, well, shade.
I thought he really was turning 33, and then this one tells me the actual age. I'm like, God damn it.
It's the big 4-0. Time to get the convertible and date a younger man. Wait, he does do that.
He is dating a younger man.
Yes.
And of course, let's welcome tonight's lead anchor, Larry Farver. Larry has over 20 years of experience in human resources, acting, film, radio, TV, live events, parade float design, production, and casting. He is also a board member of the West Side Association. Welcome to the show, Larry. How you doing tonight, girl?
I'm great, Alex.
Loving the colors on you, I might add.
Thank you. Everyone looks dapper tonight. Well, I just want to mention I had my first opportunity last Saturday, to go to Pride Fest. Saw a lot of people there. Dana Davis of Married's Mary Productions, John Hayden, who's been an anchor on the show, and many other folks who represent us in the community. So it's good to be here. We have a lot of great things going on.
Were there hot boys there?
Absolutely.
Oh, I'm sold. You already told me at hot boys.
Many of them bedazzled with Caribbean feathers. And short shorts.
Oh, even better,
Very
girl.
short.
Yes.
But it was really hot. I mean,
hence why the short shorts are so valuable.
It's been consistently hot.
I was able to get into the VIP.
Oh.
In the house there at the park.
At the Richardson Park, yeah.
So we got some air conditioning.
Oh, thank God.
In between. Yeah. These are today's headlines from Queer News Tonight. Our anchors represent the best of our LGBTQ family.
If our community is important to you, share this news with your friends and family. Don't forget to join the conversation on your favorite streaming platform. Queer News Tonight is the only live digital television show in the world that is out of the closet and into the headlines. We need your support.
If our community is to grow and then thrive, we must tell our stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world. This is the only place in the world that tells these types of LGBTQ stories in motion and sound. That is the passion of Hotspots Magazine, happening on our television network and Queer News Tonight.
I'm your anchor, Larry Farver, and thank you for joining us on behalf of my fellow LGBTQ anchors here at Queer Night News Tonight, Alex Morash and Bobby Huen. We'll see you daily at 8 o'clock p.m. To our LGBTQ plus world, we wish you a good night.